it will end up looking like this file here. And see, I've got text right here that's wrapped, and I've got text right here that's wrapped in this curve shape. It's also wrapped around this ampersand, this flower, and this backwards letter R. I'm going to talk about point type and area type in Adobe Illustrator and type on a curve. So the file that you will get will look like this one here. In your layer palettes, I've got a bunch of instructions here. Step 1, do this. So you'll do that. You read what this step is, and then you turn it off. And then you go to step 2, and step 2 tells you what to do. And then step 3 does that. We'll do type on a path. And then step 4, we're going to put type in this shape here, just like you see right here, type on the shape. We'll make an initial cap with the touch types tool. And so basically there's 3 ways to do text wraps in Adobe Illustrator and Adobe InDesign. And that's what this exercise is about, because one of the aspects of the assignment that you have is to do text wrapping around something. So I want to show you how to do that. At the onset here, I want to talk about type in Adobe Illustrator. We've got point type here. See that? This is point type. Point type has only one anchor point. If you want type to flow to a second line, you must press the return key. So I'm going to hit Command Y, which is View Outline. See right here? And you'll see this point type, I have, let me zoom in here so you can see, I have an anchor point here, and there's only one anchor point. It's just a point, and if I want to get type to flow down to the next line, I have to do this. I'll hit T for the type tool. So if you want type to flow, I'm going to click right in front of the word to here, and then hit the return key. And you see, if you want type to flow, you must press the return key. And so that's how point type works. InDesign does not have point type. InDesign functions like area type. So this second one here is called area type. When I click on it, you see a bounding box. And that bounding box is like a frame in InDesign, if you're familiar with InDesign. If you're not, basically it works like this. Area type has multiple anchor points, has to have at least 3. You need 3 points to make a shape as a general rule. You've got to have multiple anchor points. It's got to be a closed shape. And I've got here, again, I'm going to hit Command Y, and you'll see I've got an anchor point here, 4 anchor points. If I grab one of those anchor points with the direct selection tool, the white arrow tool, I can move that. You'll see I changed the shape of that, and see how the type reflowed as I move that. I can click on anchor points and move. I can click on a line and watch what happens as I move this line over. You'll see the type reflowed to fit in that shape. What you don't want to do is, I have the regular selection tool. If I grab the corner, you see how I dragged that corner and it flowed. Note, you can convert area type to point type and point type to area type by clicking on the circular handle to the right side of the box. And so what that is, I click this area type, and you see there's this circle right here, and there's a little icon of a T with an arrow and an indication of an anchor point or point type. So you double click on it. So I'm going to do that now. Click, click. And to you, it looks like, well, nothing changed. And that's true. See, I double clicked on it, and there's no bounding box. There's just one anchor point, and then the return keys are established from my existing area type. So in this instance, look what happened when I grabbed that and moved it. It squished my type. And so we never want to do that with typography. We don't want to take typography. And this is the number one, well, I'd say the number one student mistake with typography is cramming it into the corners or right to the edge of your design. Number 2, and maybe a close number two and maybe even number one is students' propensity to do this, to distort type by horizontally condensing it. It just really messes up the thicks and thins and makes your type look ugly. Very much like if you took a picture of a human being and squished them or expanded them, they'll look super off and squished, and you don't want to do that with type as well. So that's point type right now. If I were to get that point type and I'll pull it wider, you see it's going to stretch the type, or smaller. It's not reflowing the type, it's just condensing the type. So I'm going to double click on that again. You'll see this time there's a little arrow and there's a box with a T in it. That's an indication of area type. So I double click on that point again. It says double click to convert to area type, and now it's area type. Now as I pull that, you'll see the type reflows as I drag it one way or the other. So that's the difference between area type and point type, and that's what we're going to play with today. I'm going to hit Command Z a couple of times till we're back to that. And that covered all of those points. I'll end with this: type on a curve, no upsy downsies. And so what you're going to do on this project is, I've got a background layer. It has a embedded image. You don't need to touch that background layer. I've got the type layer here that all the type's on, and I have instruction layers. So what you're going to do is turn instruction 1 on, follow that instruction. And I had just turned off the guides when I was showing that other stuff, so I just turned those back on. Quick key for turning guides on and off. The command and the semicolon key will turn in every Adobe program guides off, guides on. And that's under View, just in case you can't remember that. View, Guides, Hide Guides, Show Guides, Command, semicolon. Command, semicolon. So step number 1 says, with the type tool, click and drag from the left to bottom corner to create area type. This is the same as text frame in InDesign. So I'm going to try that. So I'm going to turn 1 off. I'm going to get my type tool, and I'm going to click right here and click and drag and let go. And it's placed lorem ipsum. Lorem ipsum is placeholder type. And I'm going to, I'll change that later. Mine's in whatever font I happen to most recently be in, and I was in Arial doing the instructions. So that's the first step, is just to click and drag and place type in there. And you'll see I don't have type wrapping around, and you can just leave that as lorem ipsum. I've given you on this assignment the font, a couple of fonts. Palatino was one of the fonts. Let me see if I have Palatino loaded. So I've got Palatino, very pretty font, and I'm just going to leave that as lorem ipsum, placeholder type, and I could come back and change it once I place some real type. So that's step 1, check, done. With type tool, the quick key is T, click and drag from the left guide corner to the right bottom guide corner, and I've created area type. And so just to push that point a little bit here, if I select that area type and squish it, you would see the area, it's not smashing the type, it's just reflowing that. Or if I drag it to the right, you see that type, it's not going clear to the bottom of that column anymore, it's just flowing to this wider edge. So that's, I've placed area type, and step 1's done. Step 2 says, using the Add Anchor Point tool, which the quick key is the plus key in Adobe Illustrator. It's different key in Photoshop, and I believe it's still plus in InDesign. Add 3 anchor points to your area type vector shape. So this anchor shape here, vector shape, I have 4 anchor points. I'm going to add 3 anchor points next to the black oval here. That's step then I'm going to use the direct selection tool, which quick key is A, the anchor point tool, which is Shift plus C, to contour to my shape around the black oval with the lowercase letter I. Okay, what did that mean? It means this. I've got this shape here. If I turn off my background, you might be able to see a little bit easier here. And so I want to wrap around this I. And so I'm gonna follow those instructions. I can get the add anchor point tool, which remember was the key, the quick key plus, but it hides underneath the pen tool. I click on the pen tool. There's the add anchor point tool. And I'm gonna add an anchor point right here. Then I'm gonna add an anchor point somewhere here in the middle. And then I'm gonna add an anchor point here. Then I'm gonna get the direct selection tool. A was the quick key, it's right here. I'm gonna grab this anchor point and move it over. And you can see that type flowed around that. I still got some type hitting it. I'm gonna get the convert anchor point tool, Shift plus C, but it hides under the pen tool. Shift plus C, the convert anchor point tool. And I can click on an anchor and you see it will make handles. I'm gonna hold Shift while I do that and pull down. And I've got a nice text wrap there. You see the type is flowing around that. And so if I hit Command Y, you'll see I've created a vector shape here that has the text flowing around that shape. So that's the first way to create a text wrap, just to take an existing text frame or vector text shape, manipulate it by changing the shape, adding anchor points, subtracting anchor points, moving and manipulating those. And that is not the easiest way to manipulate type, but you will find it's the way with most control. And let's see on my piece here, I also wrapped it this way, see that? So I'm gonna go and do that because I got type flowing over this. And how am I gonna do that? Well, I don't really need this anchor point, but I could just select this anchor point. I'll click and drag it over here a little bit. So see, I'm not flowing that type anymore. I'm gonna do the same down here at the bottom. I'll grab this anchor point, pull it over. And this is lorem ipsum, so I'm not too concerned about losing type. And then I'll get my convert anchor point tool, and I'm going to click and drag the handle out here to get that to flow to that shape. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll click and drag the handle. And you see as I move that, the text will flow to wherever I move it. And so this way is, once you guys see, as I continue on with this, you'll go, oh, that was the most labor-intensive way to wrap text, Mr. Dennis. Why did you even show us that? But what you'll find is you have the very most control with text wrap. So if you look right here, I'm really typed with this text here. So I could look at my shape here and go, oh, well, I see why. I've got an anchor point that's really close to that. That frame is just coming really close. I want to nudge that over a little bit. I'll get the direct selection tool. I'll grab this anchor point. See, I pull a little bit. Look, it moved. I wish it was coming a little bit closer. I can just nudge it a little bit more and say, ooh, that looks nice. And so I can just nudge anchor points and handles, and I can get some really clean, very nice text wrap. A lot more control than you'll have in the easy automatic text wrap option. That is what you would probably prefer, but not the easiest way to do it. Step 1 and step 2 are done. Step 1, we made a text frame or area type. Step 2, we modified that shape by adding anchor points and dragging them. Step 3 is an easy one. With the type on a path tool, click on this path and add type of your choice onto this path. Okay, that sounds easy. Let's try that. So I'm gonna select this path here, and I've drawn the path for you. The type on a path tool if I just get it lives right here. See, I've got under the type tool, I've got a whole bunch of options. And the type on a path tool is this one. And this is what that type on a path tool looks like. Illustrator is very smart though. If I get just the regular type tool and I hover over a path, see that type tool will change the type on a path. Also, I've got a shape right here. If I hover over a shape, you see it turns to the area type tool. So either way, I can just hover over it with the regular type tool, or I can go down and get the type on a path tool. I'll click at the beginning of this anchor point or at the end. Either way, I'm going to click right here at the beginning, and you'll see it added lorem ipsum. I'm going to add the words text on path and triple click on it and copy that. Hit Command V a few times. So I've got text on a path, text on a path, text on a path. So that's how you do type on a path. If I click on that beginning of that type, if you look right here, that's a text start. And so I can grab that line right there and drag, and you'll see it changes where the line starts. So maybe you'll want to nudge your type a little bit that way. And then on the other end of it, I have the end of the type. Notice there's a little red plus there. That means overset text. That means there's more type than is there. You'll see right here it says text on, and then there would be the word path. This is the end line. If I drag that, you'll see it will change where the type ends as I drag it along. Okay, and there's a way to, well, if we have type that's overset, I'll teach you how to solve that problem. But on this project, we're not too worried about it on this lecture activity. Okay, so number 3 is done. Text on a path tool. Okay, step number 4 is right here. I'm going to hit save. Why? Because my heart beat, and that's how often you should save, just about how often your heart beats. So step number 4, go to the menu, File, Place, which is Shift Command P. So I'm going to do that. File, Place, and see Shift Command P. And I'm going to find type, and I've got some type here called 3 ways to wrap text in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to click on that file, and you'll have access to that. That'll be in the folder I give you. And you can just use all these defaults. It won't really matter at all for this one. Or you can click Remove Text Formatting. If you don't remove text formatting, it will apply whatever formatting you had in your original document. And so I'm gonna remove text formatting because I want to do my own formatting. So I'm going to say OK. And now I have a loaded cursor. You see my cursor here as I move it around? It looks like type is on it. And so I now have a loaded cursor. Step A is done. Step B, click on the top edge of this white shape here, and it will load into a pre-drawn vector shape. So this white shape is, I wanted to contour around this curve here. So I drew a shape. And so I'm going to click on that line, click, and see what it did? It just automatically placed type in that shape. And then it says change font to Palatino if needed. The font Palatino is included, so I'll select all. And I'm going to change that from Myriad Pro, which is the default in Adobe Illustrator, and I'll change it to Palatino. Okay, so that looks nice. I've got type wrapping around that shape. So that was step number 4. Check, done. So in this first way to do text wrap, we drew just a regular rectangle shape of a text area type. Just click and drag and then modify the shape. The second way, we started with a pre-drawn shape. And then we're going to go to the third way next here. So that was number 4. Number 5 here, doing the automatic text wrap. And so what we're going to do, we're going to select the ampersand and then hold shift to select more than one thing. Select the flower and select the backwards letter R. And then it's a Palatino R. Note that it has an open counter here. This negative space here the hole in the R would be called a counter. We remember that from our type anatomy, but it's called an open counter because there's like, you got an isthmus here, the Isthmus of Panama, a narrow opening. If this were water flowing in, it could flow into this bay. So that's a unique characteristic of that font. You'll see the same thing on the P here. So Palatino has these open counters, which is an interesting design. So we're going to select those, and then we're going to go to Object, Text Wrap, Make. It automatically made a text wrap. And I'm saying to make the text wrap 0.125, which mine did, because that's what I already have set. Yours will be a different setting. So how do you change that? I'm gonna turn that instruction off for a second. So it created a text wrap, and if you look, but it's not working, and I'll explain that in a second. So this little outline, hopefully you can see this little outline around the text. That's called a text wrap. But it's not doing anything. It's not applied to this text at this point, but we'll make that happen in a minute. But first I want to go to Object, Text Wrap, Options right here. And so I think I told you to make a 0.125, but I'll change that to point since that's what this is. See here, if I go to I'll go to like a 12-point wrap, and you'll see this shape will change. And it made a much wider space around those letters. Or again, Object, Text Wrap. You want to get rid of a text wrap, you can click Release and it will go away. You want to create a text wrap, Object, Text Wrap, Make. Let's make it be what you can do, whatever you think is good, but I'm going to go to a 9-point text wrap. So I'm going to go to Text Wrap Options, and I'll say to be 9 points. Don't worry about invert wrap. We're not doing that on this project. And there, I've got a 9-point wrap, but it's not affecting this type right here. These three are still selected. I'm going to hit Command X, which is cut, and then I'm going to go to Command F as in front, which is under Edit, Place in Front. See right here? And it didn't place them in front of the type here. You can see I've expanded my type. I'm going to try to move them to the front of the line, and they're not. I'll try again. Command X, Command F. There we go. And now the type is wrapping around it. And what had to happen is these have to be on top of the text. I'm going to hit Command Z and undo that. So if you look at in my expanded layer palette here, you'll see I've got these vector shapes here, the ampersand, the sunflower, and the backwards letter R. And you see my types way up there. I could also just drag them up here. Click on that layer, say paste in front, and you'll see it applied to the type. So they have to be above the type. So you see those three are there, and here's the text. And as I zoom up, you can see the text wrap. But this is an automatic, and that's the easiest way to wrap text. And even Word, which is not a design program, Word gives you an opportunity to do text wrap. So you can get some pretty effects in Word. Almost every program, Photoshop does text wrap, InDesign does text wrap, Illustrator does text wrap. And so if I started on this one, you go, oh, that was so much easier. Just go to Object, Text Wrap, Make. That's a lot easier. But you look at areas like this, I don't have a very nice text wrap. I would wish the type would contour to that shape a little bit. And so if that were like I had anchor points I was manipulating, you saw how I was able to manipulate the type to fit into those areas a little bit better. So that's how text wrap works. And then next thing we're going to do, I've got some nice text here, but I'm going to make a drop cap or enlarged initial cap. I think I want this T to get larger. So I'm going to click the type tool, and at the bottom of the type tool is the touch type tool. With the touch type tool, I can click on, I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. I clicked on the T, and then I don't want to stretch type again, right? So that's not okay, but I can grab the corner here and I can enlarge that T. Ooh, that's attractive. And I could move it if I want. So there, I've got an attractive initial cap using the touch type tool. Initial caps, this one's also, and it's an enlarged initial cap. It's also a drop cap. You'll see it's dropping down to the next line. And so this is an enlarged initial cap. It's also a drop cap. Drop cap sometimes will drop to 2, 3, 4 lines, but this is a drop cap to the second line. All initial enlarged caps are also called versals, V-E-R-S-E-L, versal as well, a little bit of typographic terminology. So that's the touch type tool. Added a little pizzazz to our type. That's attractive. Text wraps add pizzazz to type. And the last thing we're going to do, I'm going to hit save, is we're going to do some type on this curve here. I've got this little button here, and I didn't give you a curve, but I'll fix that. I'm going to start in the center here and hold Option and draw out a space here. And I'm going to put some type on a curve here. I select this type on a curve. I'll hit copy. And then I'm going to go to the T for the type tool. And see, right now it's thinking, oh, that's a shape. I want to put type, area type. If I click on that, it's going to put type in there. I don't want that. So in this case, since I want to have type going around the perimeter, I need to manually select the type on a path tool. I'm going to click on that tool, and you see I've got nice type on a path. Now I can hit Command V. I've got type on a curve. I wish it were centered. Well, I could click the center button here. Oh, it's upside down. And I have to stand on my head to read it. So I can go to my regular selection tool and look right here. Since this type I set to be centered, I've got this little line here, and see as I drag that line, it's going to move. I've got a start point, an end point. I'm going to go back to end point here, and see as I drag, there's the start point. See what's happening as I drag that around. And it's easy if you pull inside. So right now my type is to the inside of that arc. And then if I pull that around, it's like just spinning around the type. If I pull to the, what I want to do with my my type is I'm going to double click on that text on a path tool because I have some more control. So the text on a path tool, I double click and look right here. I need this tool to be able to do this step here. I'm aligning type to the baseline. So that's the baseline there. And I don't want it on the baseline. Let's see what else we have. We align to the A sender. Well, that's going to be the same as the cap height here. I'll try that. Align to A sender. I'm going to click preview. See, it moved the type to where the A sender would be. And the A senders go a little bit higher than cap height. So you see what that did. And the default will be baseline. But what we want to do, and generally what I would recommend doing, if you're doing type on a circle like this and you're going to have type on above and the below part of the circle, I would align to center, and that's going to work best. And then I'll click OK. Okay, so I've got two lines here, and I'm going to get my regular move tool, and I'm going to move this. This is the start point, and the end point's clear over here, and this is the center point right there. And so I'm going to drag that around. I'll start with the end point here, And watch as I drag around the perimeter of that. I can get my type on the top. There's the start point, the end point, the center point. And so I'm going to take the start point here and I'm going to drag it clear to this edge right there. I'm going to do the same thing with the end point. So I've got my start point there, got my end point there, and you see it's centered perfectly because I've got on my paragraph settings, I'm aligned center, and I put my start point here at the far left edge of the circle, and I put my end point right here. If I drag that, you'll see it's going to not be centered anymore. So takes a little bit of finessing, and it's easy to accidentally, flip it to the bottom side or something like that. But it just helps to understand where your start point, your end point are. And then I'm going to go back to align left and see what happens. See, there's my start point. You could just drag along here like that. Maybe I wanted the A right in the center, but I'm not liking that. So I'm going to go back to center like I had before. I'm going to go far left is my start point, far right of that circle is my end point, and that looks good. I'm going to hit Command C. I'm going to copy that because I'm going to put no upsy downsies next. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to go to Object Lock Selection. That's Command 2. That's a really useful key command. Command 2 to lock something. Now I can't select that. Now I'm going to go to Paste in Front, which is Command F or Edit, Paste in Front right here. See that? And you don't see that it did anything. It just pasted the same type on a curve. And I'm going to select no upsy downsies, Command C, and then I'm going to get my type tool and triple click. Now I've got type on a curve selected here, and I hit no upsy downsies. And what I mean by that is, see what happens as I drag this type around? You see my center point right there is right on the circle. And it says no upsy downsy. And by that, what I mean is I don't think it's optimal to have somebody have to stand on their head. So a lot of times you'll see a logo and it'll be like what I've done right here, where I've got type on the top part of the curve and then type on the bottom part of the curve. If I just did that all in one section there, it would be really easy to have the type to where we have to stand on our head there. So that's an easy way to make the type by doing two different layers to make it where we don't have to stand on our head. And so that looks good. Maybe I want to add a bullet to that. Here's a little bonus. I can hit the Option key and the number 8, and that will give me a bullet. And I'll push space bar, and then I'm going to come on this side, put a space, and then Option 8. And I'm just going to add some bullets. Option 8, Alt on a PC, 8. And notice as I'm making these bullets on the right, they're disappearing on the left. I wonder what's going on there. And the answer, look where my endpoint of my type is. So I need to move my endpoint around, and I'll move my start point around. There, my start point is right to the far left edge, my endpoint to the far right edge, and you can see I have those bullets. Type on a curve, no upsy downsy. Okay, and so that's basically what we're doing on this project. We have learned about point type. Has one anchor point. You have to hit the return key in order for it to go to the next line. We learned about area type. It's got multiple anchor points. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 in this instance. We learned if you double click on this little circle, either on the point type or the area type, it will convert to the other one, area type or point type. InDesign does not have this feature. InDesign only thinks in frames, so it only thinks in the area type mode. We learned about type on a curve here, and then we reinforced that a little bit here. We did text wrap by creating just a regular rectangular shape and then manipulating that shape, modifying that shape. And before text wrap, this was the only way, before auto text wrap like we did here, this was the only way to get type to wrap around a shape. And it still is the way with the very most control. And then lastly, we learned about, well, not lastly, but we next learned about pasting type into a pre-drawn shape. So a lot of times that's a good way to do it. You already have the shape drawn and then you'll paste type into it. And then lastly, we did text wrap. And so that is how to do text wrap on this project.